Well, welcome, fans and foes, viewers and haters. It's me, your cinema simpleton, and these days, even Hollywood can't fool an idiot. It's my favorite time of year when girls go screaming to the theaters to go see their six-packed vampire and their pasty-faced, it's six-packed werewolf and pasty-faced vampire boyfriends, and yeah, it's my favorite time of the year. You know, it's hilarious how every year these films get so many people going to see them. And I've had my share of making fun of the Twilight series. But I will say that with this one, I think that I am starting to see what it is about the charm of Twilight. The drama that moves women across North America and Europe and makes them fall for these characters, what it is that pulls them into wanting to know more about the characters of Edward, Bella, and Jacob, and about Forks and the vampire mythology in general. I think that I'm starting to feel why they're important and starting to understand just the relatability, if that's a word, of why they're supposed to be symbols of our society today. This movie reconfirmed why I'll never understand Twilight. This is gotta be this is the staple in the fact that Twilight is going to be as much relatable to me as Cantonese. I would like to point out that these movies have potential. Hear me out. These movies do have potential in being appealing to everyone, being appealing to a culture, being appealing to women who want a genre that's, you know, the vampire romance genre. But they don't do it because they don't know what to focus on. They go for interesting stuff. There's a plot point here that never gets developed with Edward. Edward, apparently, if you didn't know this, was a serial killer's serial killer, or a rapist serial killer. He killed rapists. He was not a rapist and a serial killer. He killed pedophiles, rapists, and people like that back when he was first a vampire. Fun fact. But they don't go anywhere with it. They just mention it out of the blue, have their montage of flashbacks, and don't do anything interesting with it. It's never important again. They do something like introduce randomly vampire bachelor party, but we never see what happens at said bachelor party. I would like to know what the undead Nosferatu do for their last day of singlehood, but no, we never get to find out what happens. You see what I mean? Twilight, especially Breaking Dawn Part 1, over dramatizes stuff that they think we should care about. But they never establish why we should regard these things as important. For instance, there's a story arc here of Jacob wanting to become a pack leader, take his right as a leader. Why should we care about this? You've never established before that this should be cared about in previous movies. You never established before in the story that we should care about this. Instead, you just have a random scene crammed in here where Jacob in his werewolf form just stands up on his hind legs and goes, "I will not take orders from you!" Yeah? And? This is supposed to be big news? Wow! Okay. You see what I'm saying? And in a scene like that, it's a good example of why the person who's in charge of Twilight's movies music, they are picking these songs blindly in this movie. I'm serious. You could not have... These must have been tracks picked at random. They really have no emotional mixing with their performances, the direction, or the screenplay in anything that you see on the screen. They are throwing you off like whiplash. They never make any connection with the scene. I could have just randomly crammed in frigging Bach into a scene of like Bella and Edward making out. And it would make as much sense as the music selection in this film. So, and speaking of Bella and Edward making out, this whole film is regarding two things. Bella and Edward's wedding and Bella and Edward's wedding, Bella and Edward's honeymoon, and third, Bella and Edward's pregnancy with their unholy demon child. So, yeah. And Moses, like, his jaw's dropping in the background.
Demon child?
Yeah. So, yeah, in the wedding, they have everybody come together for this happy occasion because it's so nice when you have a gunshot at Fork's wedding. You know, or shotgun. You know what I mean. So they have the wedding and everybody's happy except Six-Pack Jacob. And so then they have the honeymoon where we find out an interesting thing about Bella. Bella Swan is a nympho. And you know what? Okay, when everybody hears the term nympho, they, you know, jab each other in the shoulder and go, "Oh, dude, that chick's a nympho, man. Score with her. Woohoo! Party over here." No. Bella is seriously a mentally diseased nymphomaniac. The woman is being battered and bruised night after night on her honeymoon. And she wants more sex. Am I wrong here to say that she really could be doing other things with her time other than endangering her health? Edward and her are like destroying the bedroom, for crying out loud. And she never thinks, maybe I could be, you know, having a picnic with my husband. Maybe we could be doing something other than frigging ready to break my body in half. So after their wild, kinky vampire sex, Bella becomes pregnant. And there's only one, like, all the events in the third act, which, by the way, it's only until the third act that any of this movie becomes interesting. All the events in the third act could have been prevented if vampires knew anything about sex ed. Vampires, especially Edward, apparently have no idea what birth control means. It's called a condom, moron! He really just thinks, so if I have sex with Bella, then all we'll do is express our love and we'll become closer together without any repercussions. Doi! And then they have this, like, freaky pregnancy where Bella is getting, like, the fat and life getting sucked out of her. And, like, Edward's screaming at Bella, "You've given me no choice! No, you're so selfish, Bella! I'm gonna go cry in a corner with Jacob! Hold me, Mr. Black!" And he's acting like the pregnancy was her choice or something. For a man who was raised by a doctor, this guy has no idea how the human anatomy functions. And the thing is, I would say, and I know what you're saying, she has a choice. She could, you know, get rid of the baby. Except I'm pretty sure that they established beforehand that the baby, like, that needles won't puncture the fetus. And even if they didn't, I wouldn't be surprised if it couldn't, because this thing is, like, pounding inside of her womb like it's the frigging Hulk. I'm not even kidding you. It's, like, destroying her body. Her bones are being broken like they're made of friggin' paper mache. And it's ridiculous. I wouldn't want to stick a needle into that chick's belly. I wouldn't want to go 10 feet in front of her. So the movie turns into the whole standoff because the wolves want to kill the baby. And Jacob wants to protect her, so he betrays them and he sides with the vampires. So it turns into a whole standoff between the wolves and the vampires. And it's a pretty bloody standoff, except that the blood really doesn't happen in the standoff. The majority of the blood is in the birth scene. And I suppose, like, but here, you know what? Okay. If you added up all the amount of blood in the Twilight Saga, like Eclipse, New Moon, and Twilight, you wouldn't be at half the amount of blood in frigging Break Dawn Part 1. Part 1! It's ridiculous. Like, and you would, if it was like a standoff, like I said, it would be interesting. The problem is, they don't add any of the blood where it should belong. It's just this bloody birth scene. And this is a very stretched out movie. They make nothing really happen that's interesting until like it's like an hour and a half in. I'm like, okay, so after sex scene number 8, do we get something like, when's the aggression happen? When's the violence happen? I'd like to see more action than just Edward thrusting into Bella's you-know-what.
They're trying to...
Oh, shut up, Moses.
No, the fans like
shut up.
Hey!
And, so... Shut up. So, the vampires, there's just not a lot here that happens with the vampires or the werewolves. And I would say that this is a very passable installation to the saga. They really, if you skip between Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 2, then I doubt there's very much that happens in Breaking Dawn Part 2 that you can just have somebody explain to you within 2 minutes, and then you'll catch up. So I'm going to give this a rating of 1.5 out of 5. And by the way, if you ever find yourself in a Nosferatu wedding where your in-laws happen to be vampires, don't let the vampires have a lot of control over what's going to happen at your wedding. Because vampires are apparently control freaks, according to people like Alice. Because Bella is like with her mom on her wedding day. Her mom's getting emotional, and so she goes to hug Bella. And Alice pushes her away, saying, No, you're going to ruin my masterpiece. A mother wants to comfort the bride on the day she's going to leave her family forever. Screw you, you heartless undead.